I'd just like to now invite Ling Tan. Ling Tan is an artist, maker, software developer, and works very much within social engagement, technology, performance, and politics. You were originally trained as an architect, but her work explores people's interaction with the built environment and our collective agency and responsibility in tackling complex issues surrounding our cities. She works with communities in these different cities and countries and creates outdoor participatory work using wearable technology as tools to engage with their local built environments and express their relationship with the city through their subjective perception. Her work can address issues such as safety in public space, air quality, smart city objectives, gender, demographics, and race. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. He mentioned a bit about my background, so I just want to talk a bit about my background because that's going to kind of show you why the things that I do right now at the moment with outdoor work. So like Bill was saying, I'm an architect by training, so I worked as an architect for a few years before coming into UK to study interactive architecture, and that's when one thing led to another. I now become a designer, maker, and software developer. So my practice falls somewhere between digital technology, community engagement, social engaged practice, and politics. And like he was saying as well, I've always been, as an architect, I've always been interested in how people interact with the built environment, and in this case, through technology. And I'm specifically interested in the idea of collective agency and action. How do we tackle issues together as individual, as citizen, and as a community, and tackle issues that concerns the city and the neighborhood that we live in? Can we use technology in a way to harness these collective actions and get people to do things together that goes beyond the capability that they can express as individual? So a lot of my work uses wearable technology, custom wearable technology as tools, and I work a lot with different communities in different cities and countries, and using it as a way for them to express their relationship with the city through their subjective perception. So a lot of my work that I do is based on people's subjective perception of how they interact with the city. And some of the issues that I've been working on over the years are things to do with, for example, the perception of safety while walking in the public streets, female representation in conferences, and cultural diversity, wheelchair accessibility, and also air quality issues in neighborhood. Most of my work are outdoor-based, and it involves working with citizens to co-create the final experience. So it could either be a walk, a spectacle, a procession, or a data collection exercise on its own. In the work I do, I design, fabricate, and program most of the technology myself, and that includes things like the backend server, data storage, front-end mobile phone app development, user interface, 3D printing, soldering, and also making the custom gesture wearable tag itself, which I heard from people that I worked with before, it might be masochistic, but I do enjoy the process a lot. Because, there's a lot, I'm sure some of you might experience that. There's a lot of pain in it, but I enjoy the challenges that comes with making it and understanding it. But essentially what I've always been wanting to focus on in my work is the merging of community engagement and technology to create something that is meaningful for the participant, not just for the sake of technology. And the work that I do is not just me figuring out by myself. I didn't press to this one. I actually learned a lot through my own experience working as a senior designer in Umbrellium. I'm trying to press the next button and it's not working. Yes, okay. So it's learning through experience. So I've been working as a senior designer in Umbrellium, where we are a company with a small group of architects, software engineer, and producer, where we design and produce work ranging from outdoor spectacle work. Okay, let me just. That's the issue with technology. It always doesn't work in presentation. I think there's a product out there though that it needs to adapt to different settings. Anyway, so we design and produce work ranging from outdoor spectacle work to urban technology products, and we work a lot with tech companies and authorities, local council. And what we do is we produce urban technology products and working within the idea of the smart city context. So a lot of the work we do is based on the idea of how do we create the digital layer that goes into the city that we live in, and how do we make sure that technology works for the people in the city, not the other way around. So kind of the work that I do in Umbrella influence the work that I do myself as well. So it's kind of interchangeably learning through the experience as a whole. So today I want to talk specifically about 3 outdoor work of mine that uses wearable technology in different ways in outdoor contexts, and also talking specifically about the key challenge in each one of them. The first one I want to talk about is the challenge of scale and the scale of outdoor work itself. The first project I want to talk about is Super Gesture, which is a project that I did last year in Manchester. It was commissioned by Future Everything and CityVerve. CityVerve is they claim to be the first UK smart city demonstrator, but essentially they are a consortium of big tech companies and the Manchester City Council, and they were funded millions of money to deploy urban technology infrastructure in the city centre of Manchester. So I was commissioned by them to create a participatory piece that kind of explored the use of technology in the city. But for me, what I was really interested in is really the young people in the city itself, because back then at that time, it was a period where the general election happens and a lot of young people's voices weren't heard, given that they will be the one that's impacted by what's happening the most in the future. So this Super Gesture is a participatory project and performance piece which explores the relationship between what a smart city agenda gives to the city and the impact it has on people's everyday life. Here I work with 50 young people from different parts of Manchester over a period of half a year to create this. So they come together to create a collective body of what we call Super Gesture, which is a set of body gesture that is captured through this custom-made wearable tag that symbolizes their messages for the city. And each participant is asked to record geolocated audio messages that gets dispersed in the city area, and then create the gesture that symbolizes the message that goes with it. The project then accumulate in this large-scale performance piece, which happened on the 10th of March last year, where a total of 45 people walked down the streets of Manchester city centre and used the wearable as a way to listen to the audio content created by the young people and then perform the gesture that relates to the messages if they support the messages that were told by the young people. The idea is essentially getting people to create the visual spectacle themselves, and through the messages that they embody, as an audience, you can see as well the formulation and how you can see in itself how the spectacle affects how people perceive the experience as well as a participant and also as a passive audience. There's many layers of complexity in the project, but I want to focus specifically on the scale itself. How do we go about managing 45 people walking down the streets of Manchester city centre on a Saturday night? And it's also right after the Beast of East. Actually, it was postponed a week because it was snowing in March as well. And I can't stress how important it is to make sure that when you create something like that, you make sure that you create a safe space for the participant. Because for me, I think I was... it's not working. Okay. It is working. I do need to stress the importance of making sure your permits, the getting of the permits, informing the police and the council on what's happening, because a lot of times when we didn't do that, a lot of shit happens. I mean, as some of you must have known. Risk assessment is very important, and I think just sharing my experience, what I always emphasize with my producer and the people I work with is to make sure that we make sure that if any participant were to get hurt during the process, we have a protocol in place to make sure that they get to the safest point, and making sure that the first aid person is always there in the performance. So in this performance itself, we have one first aid person that's with us all the time, and we have 4 stewards that is constantly around the perimeter of the performance, making sure that the 45 people don't get hurt in the process of it. And some of you might know Manchester, there's a lot of drunk people in the city centre as well. How do we make sure that if they are curious about the project, they stay within a safe area so that participants do not have to, in a sense, interact with what's happening, and letting the steward manage this. One of the things that I also face along making this is also understanding that technology might not always work as ideal. And for me, when I work on projects like that, I always tell myself to focus on what I call, the MVP, which some of you might know, minimum viable product. You always have to make sure that technology is design-led, not tech-led, and not the other way around. And also constantly interrogating what's the relevance of the technology. So during this process, it was, for me, part of it is really about scraping off the things that is not needed and really focusing on the core of what is needed, which is the gesture sensing, the audio content, and also the visual spectacle that has been created from the gesture. Also, budgeting a lot of ample of time for rehearsal and user testing helps me a lot in the process of it, making sure that you have your team crew, your crew with you. So I work with a choreographer, Ruth Jones, who was with me creating the choreography for the performance itself. And part of the challenge of wearable as well is because everyone is wearing it on their body. So it's making sure that everyone of different sizes can take part in the project. So creating the wearable that suits all different body sizes is quite important in the process of making it as well. The second one I want to talk about, which address the challenge of replicability, is Pollution Explorer, which is this air quality project that I've been doing over the past 3 years. And what it does is it explores how people make sense of the complex issue around air quality in their neighborhood and to consider how they might tackle those issues through their own collective actions. So over the past 3 years, this project has been funded from different organizations. So it was funded initially by Organic City, which is kind of a tech-led government organization. And then it was also funded by arts organization and also in collaboration with Tower Hamlets Council and Cheshire East Council as well. And here I work with more than 300 local residents from London, Macclesfield, Paris, and Amsterdam. And what they do is the participants go out into the streets and capture what they think the air quality is at that moment through performing specific body gesture. So if they think the air is good, they raise their hands out. If they think the air is bad, they put their hands to the nose. And the data were collected in real time through the wearables. And what we did is after the walk, the participant would then look at the perception data that's collected by them as a collective, and also look at the machine air quality data that's been collected at the same time. And for them to make a judgment on their own whether their sensors is as accurate as any machine. And if it is accurate, then what can you do as individual to tackle the issues of air quality, given that you have the ability and responsibility to do it yourself now? So the idea is for them to go through this process of using the technology to capture the perception data, but ultimately the aim is for them to understand that their action is important and can they do something in their everyday life to help improve their environment around them. The challenge for this project, because it happens over a 3 years period, and for me, this project takes a lot of iteration. So I've been producing different types of wearable for the different workshop session. And again, because it's wearable, it has to suit different body sizes. And in this case, it has to suit kids to adults to elderly. And a lot of testing of the wearables and also making sure that it's weatherproof, which is very important for an outdoor work itself. And unfortunately enough, London has always been raining a lot. So a lot of the workshops that were carried out in the rain. So a lot of them were wearing the raincoat with the electronics embedded inside and going out onto the streets and capturing the gesture data. So, just one of the things that I find working on this project and also kind of the challenges of it is also telling myself what is important is also stressing this importance of giving plenty of space for trial and error. If you do the technology yourself, I always recommend that you include ample of prototype and ample of testing costs to your budget and make sure that there is space for contingency. If you're contracting others to do the technology, make sure that you are fully aware of the scope of work that they are doing and also whether it reflects the creative outputs that it creates. Because a lot of times when you don't know what technology it needs to create the experience you want, you tend to think that by giving the money to a supplier, to a technology, creative technologies, they could solve the issue for you. But the issue is the technologies might not necessarily know what experience you are creating. So I think as the artist, there needs to be a very strong kind of management of what is the output from the technology that's being created. Basically, don't slap money on things that is unnecessary. The last thing I want to talk about quickly.
Very briefly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the last thing I'll talk about is safety in doing outdoor work itself, and just ending off with this project that I've been doing over. Oh, could you help me press play? This is the one with the issue. So I've been doing over past 4 years, which is called Superpower Toolkit, which is a set of wearable tools that's used by different communities to enable them to collect perception data concerning their cities. And in this case, I was working in Johannesburg in South Africa, where we work with local residents to map out the perception of safety while walking on the streets. In Johannesburg itself, safety is a very big issue. You can't actually walk out into the streets after 6 p.m. And also there's a lot of invisible boundary of where you could go as a tourist, as a black person, as a white person. And that's it is actually a very immediate issue that hasn't been solved by the government itself. And what we did was we created this set of wearables that enable them to record the data that they can be passed to the government as a quality of life survey. The thing that I want to talk about here is mainly about the idea of safety, because in UK itself, it might be relatively safe to do an outdoor work, but in that case itself, safety is such a big issue. Wearing an expressive wearable will definitely catch the attention of people who has the intention to do something. So this project, in the very first iteration, was a set of hidden wearables that is embedded into the clothes itself, where people walk in pairs outside, and when they basically walk in pairs and collect the data as they go. And if their partner feel unsafe, they feel a haptic feedback on their wearables. And the idea is that it's using intuitive gesture. So sometimes when you feel scared, you tend to clench your fists or you put your hands to your heart. And using what I did was to use this wearable to capture those unconscious intuitive gesture and map it out as you go. And this project then takes form in the form of the arm guard, which you see in the earlier video, which then entails people walking in group in the outdoor setting and recording different types of safety data through observation. But I just want to end it off with through doing all this work itself, one of the things that I realized when I'm doing this is really essentially to make sure that when we do this kind of digital-led outdoor work, we always make the technology work for the participant and not the other way around. And it's very important that you also work a lot with the local organizer and also with the participant to make sure that they are fully aware of what they are doing, the data they are collecting, and whether they feel safe to do that as well. And always giving them the choice to opt out from the performance if they felt unsafe in certain moments. So, yeah, thank you.